Hello, this is Dr. Harriet Fraad on Capitalism Hits Home, an interpersonal update. This is a show about the intersection of capitalism, class, and our personal lives. Today's podcast is about two things that may not seem to have a relationship on the surface, but they're indeed related in today's America. I'm going to talk about Mother's Day, which was so just recent, and I'm also going to talk about abortion rights that are being taken away every day. I'll begin with Mother's Day. Mother's Day is a day of buying things in Mother's name, of buying sentimental, flowery cards, of taking perhaps Mom out to dinner or breakfast, about buying flowers, and about, in a very sentimental way, celebrating Mother's labor. It's captured very well by a song in country and Western music, and country and Western music is right-wing populism set to music, so it's very appropriately conveyed. It's called No Charge. My little girl came into the kitchen this evening while I was fixing supper, and she handed me a piece of paper she'd been writing on. And after wiping my hands on my apron, I read it, and this is what it said. For mowing the yard, $5. And for making my own bed this week, $1. And for going to the store, 50 cents. And playing with little sister while you went to the store, 25 cents. Taking out the trash, $1. And raking the yard, $2. Total owed $14.75. Well, I looked at her standing there expectantly, and 1,000 memories flashed across my mind. So I picked up the pen, turning the paper over. This is what I wrote. For the 9 months I carried you growing inside me, no charge. For the nights I sat up with you, doctored you and prayed over you, no charge. For the toys, food, and clothes, and for wiping your nose, that's no charge. When you add it all up, the full cost of my love is no charge. Well, she finished reading. She had great big old tears in her eyes, and she looked up at me and said, Mama, I sure do love you. Then she took the pen, and in great big letters she wrote, paid in full. When you add it all up, the cost of mother love is no charge. Well, that's well said. And in America, we have to look at how we actually do value mothers, how we value maternity leave, what we give to mothers when they take time to bear children and to care for infant children and older children, and parental leave for when they care for sick children at home, or ailing children, or upset children, or children whose schools are calling them. How much do we care? There's an American saying that is very much an American saying. You put your money where your mouth is. So let's see how much money we're putting on our love for mothers. Particularly, let's see how much we value mothers compared to the other wealthy democracies, like France, which has as diverse a population as the United States, or Germany the same, Sweden or Norway, which now have diverse populations. Let's see. Well, here's what they give to mothers for maternity leave to deliver and care for their babies in France. France gives 16 weeks, 4 months of maternity leave at 94.2% of the mother's pay. And France, like the other countries, in France, the government compensates the company, the place where the mother worked, so it's less painful for the company to give this mandatory maternity leave. Germany gives 14 weeks of maternity leave, 3 months and 2 weeks, at 100% of the mother's pay. Sweden gives 12.9 weeks, just over 3 months, maternity leave, at 77.6% of the mother's pay. Norway gives 13 weeks, 3 months and a week. Maternity leave at 97.9% of the mother's pay, and all of that pay is compensated by the government. What do we give in America to show how much we truly value mothers? Nothing. We give zero, nada, nothing. Why? Why is the U.S. in the company of just 3 others? Swaziland, Papua New Guinea, and Somalia. Very poor, desperate places. The pattern is the same with parental leave to care for children. Every other Western developed nation gives parental leave for parents, particularly mothers, to take care of their children's lives. Now let's look at how else we value mothers besides sentimental cards and songs. What about wages for mothers? If we put our money where our mouth is, we can look. At any time, as of 2018, 2019, if we look at what mothers are being paid compared to fathers and other men, mothers get 70% of the wages of all men, including fathers. However, that's too high. Most mothers have to take time off because their domestic responsibilities and child care responsibilities are too great. So they take some time off from work. Over the 15 years, because they took time off from work, they make 42% of what men earn over a lifetime and over a span of 15 years. Whoa, put your money where your mouth is? How much do we value mothers? Now, let's look at the other topic that I'm talking about, which is abortion rights. With a clear understanding that women will have abortions whether they're legal and allowed and punished, or punished and disallowed and forbidden. The difference is that mothers will be forced, if abortion isn't allowed, or is so restricted by fetal heartbeat that you can't even tell you're pregnant till it isn't allowed. Mothers still abort their children because they can't care for them, because they can't afford to take time off from work, because they have too many other children, because they're psychologically already overstressed. And so, of course, there have always been abortions. But what the difference is there's more children who aren't properly cared for. There's more deaths and injuries where women bleed to death from botched abortions or do themselves damage. But abortion is always there. Abortions are legal and paid for with government funds in all the other nations that are listed and every other Western democratic wealthy nation. Why are we taking abortion away in America? What's going on here? It is curious to note that the states that most restrict abortion do the least in caring for mothers and babies, whether it's Ohio, Georgia, Missouri, Mississippi. Those states defend denying women abortion rights on the moral ground that they value life. However, they all have the death penalty. They have some of the most mass killings, the most homicides, the most gun sales. They're the ones with the highest murder rates. Wait a minute. Are they the ones who value life? What's going on here? In order to understand, we have to look at who is behind the denials of abortion rights and of maternity leaves, paternity leaves, parental leaves, And who's pressing for an end to abortion rights for women? It's the same people. It's the U.S. right wing, including, and very much including, the religious right. These people have become increasingly militant. Why? What's their agenda? That's an important topic for this time around Mother's Day. I think this is what was happening. There's a revolution going on in the United States. It's not a political revolution. It's a revolutionary transformation of personal life and family. How does it work? Well, between 1820 and the 1970s, America was mainly a white country. They slaughtered all the Indians, and we had mainly white immigrants. For every generation of white males, they could support a family on a family wage. That was partly because they fought and died for union rights, and it was partly because there was a scarce labor shortage. There was scarcity. In our racist and sexist system, males were hired. White males were given priority and got a supplement for being white and male in our labor force. Women were supported on male wages, partly because women, even those who had to work outside the home, got about half of what men got for wages. Now, this was never true of minorities. Minority males were never given enough to support a family wage, which is one of the reasons that African American women, although they worked in the most oppressed sectors, domestic labor and low-grade industrial labor, were more independent and poorer. That's changed. The overwhelming majority of women in the United States have to work outside the home to survive. White men's wages were exported, outsourced to countries that make about $4 an hour at the highest. India, which makes less than that. All of these make less, but it's about $4. China is the highest at $3.97 an hour. They were exported to places without ecological safety restrictions or labor rights. So American corporations raked it in. And white men were left with the same kind of depressed wages that women got. And women poured into the household because it takes two salaries now to earn less than what one white male earned in terms of real wages, what you can actually buy for your family. This was a blow to the white male who counted on dependent women working to care in their household full-time. They had a full-time servant doing emotional labor for them, understanding them, helping them, doing housework, creating order and cleanliness, doing childcare, doing social work, connecting them with relatives, inviting friends over, and doing sexual labor, caring for their needs sexually. Now, women are coming home and don't want to do a whole second shift of labor, taking care of men in the home, and many men want women to compensate them for their lower salaries and less standing. This is a recipe for disaster, and families are breaking up. Their old roles are economically impossible. The terrain has changed. The majority of U.S. women are now single, and by choice. It's now women who initiate most divorces, 70% of the divorces, and who most refuse marriage. It used to be the joke that men are dragged to the altar. Oh no, not anymore. Women are rejecting those traditions that meant that they had a second job when they got home. Other countries, like the ones I cited before, Germany, France, Sweden, Norway, they have rules and laws that allow a different kind of marriage, a marriage of equals, a marriage of partners who work outside the home and work together in the home. They also have provisions for children so that it's not only the parents who care for children. For example, France, which is similar to the United States in its racial mix, have universal, high-quality preschool education starting at 3 years old and drop-in childcare for $1 an hour for children who are less than that. And at their daycares, they have at every class a master's degree teacher, an associate's degree teacher, and in every childcare there's a sick room. So if parents have to work and the children are sick and the parents don't want to take parental leave, family leave days, there's a registered nurse to care for their children and give them pediatric care. They also have paid vacations and paid counseling. That's what every other wealthy nation has. Why not us? Well, that's a good question. What's happening is the right wing, knowledgeable about the fact that women have to work outside the home, are looking to a family form that was dominant in the Third Reich, a fascist family form, in which women had to work in factories up to 60 hours a week, but were still responsible for child care and care for their husbands and care for their homes, where women were not equal, men were superior, and women had to know their place. Of course, even though they denied abortions, one of the first things the Nazis denied, and they also denied birth control, the birth rate went down because women were so tremendously exhausted from doing their second shift. That's the ideology, that women need to serve men. That's the ideology of the Southern Baptist Convention, even now, the Convention on Men and Women, that women are to be subordinate to men. That doesn't work in terms of two people working, sharing work, and also coming home to a house and children that need care. So that the right wing is trying to create such terrible social conditions by denying abortion, by trying to erode birth control, of course, as well, and by denying maternity leaves, paternity leaves, family leaves, paid family vacations, while posing as great friends of the family, that they are forcing women into fascist feudal families. That's not working too well. As it turns out, the divorce rate is greatest in the red states, where the religious right has the greatest following, because women refuse. They can't, and they refuse these roles of a double shift, being dominated by men who don't support them. Now, these are struggles around what kind of families we have, whether we have a kind of feudal fascist family style or an egalitarian communal family style or an independent family style. It should be noted that since the majority of American women are single, 42% of children are born outside of a traditional family, and women are the poorest adults in our society. Children are the poorest people, and motherhood is a predictor of poverty for women, because we don't have the benefits that would help women be equals in the marketplace. Ironically, evangelicals try to suppress sex outside of marriage, and try to force people into early marriages, which is probably why their divorce rates are the highest. Whereas states like Massachusetts, which has full abortion rights and much better maternity leaves and parental leave provisions, have the lowest rate of divorces. States with the most empowerment for women to get abortions also have the best maternity benefits and family leaves, because they are states that are, without declaring it as such, creating the conditions for the new family forms that are emerging, either an independent woman and her children, or people living together outside of a marriage, or a communal marriage where people share labor outside and inside the home. They have the least homicides, the least suicides, the least mass killings, or among the least. They have the least gun killings because they have the most restrictive gun laws. And ironically, the fewest rapes and the fewest divorces. The struggle for women's rights and mothers' rights are really a struggle over family forms, whether it will be what I call the fascist family form or more independent or communal families. And that struggle is fought out on the terrain of abortion and of maternity leaves. The United States hasn't even gotten to paternity leaves. And support for communal and independent families or authoritarian fascist families. It really reflects the kind of choices that are shaping up in America, either for a democratic, socialist set of priorities of social benefits like maternity and paternity leaves, parental leaves, and after-school care and summer care and child care, or a fascist family form where women are supposed to do it all and, of course, can't. That's what's going on in these struggles around Mother's Day, for mothers' rights in maternity benefits, and for mothers' rights to choose whether they can be mothers or not in abortion rights. It's important to see this shadow struggle so we know what's happening in America and where this revolution to new family forms and personal forms is happening. Thank you. Thank you for listening. This episode has been brought to you by Democracy at Work. Please support our work. Visit our website at democracyatwork.info.